Virgo, something made you stop right here, right now. And I want you to notice that, because you could have kept scrolling. You could have moved past this, but something in you didn't let you, and I think you already know why. There's something sitting with you lately, not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet weight, the kind that follows you from room to room, the kind that is still there when you wake up in the morning, before your mind has even had time to catch up. A feeling that something around you is not what it appears to be. Let me stay here with you for a moment, because what I am sensing right now feels like something a lot of people carry alone. And I don't think you should have to carry it alone anymore. There is someone in your life, or there has been someone who on the surface presents themselves beautifully. They know the right things to say. They know how to appear reasonable, how to appear calm, how to appear innocent. And in public, in front of others, they probably do appear exactly that way. But in the small moments, in the quiet spaces between words, in the way something shifts in their eyes when you say something they weren't expecting, you feel it. Something that doesn't quite match the performance. And I use that word deliberately, performance, because what you may be dealing with is someone who has learned very carefully how to perform goodness without necessarily living it. I want to ask you something right now. Think about a recent moment. Maybe you were sitting at your desk, maybe you were getting ready in the morning, and a memory surfaced. Something this person said or did that at the time you brushed off. But now, sitting with it again, it lands differently. Does that feel familiar? Have you been replaying moments lately and seeing them with new eyes? Let me know in the comments, because I feel like a lot of you watching this right now are in the middle of exactly that process. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from being around someone who plays innocent. And I want to describe it carefully because it is not obvious. It does not feel like being hit. It does not feel like an explosion. It feels like being slowly, quietly rearranged, like little by little, in ways you can barely track. Your sense of reality starts to shift. What you thought you saw, you start to question. What you thought you felt, you start to doubt. What you thought you knew starts to feel uncertain. And the exhausting part is not just the confusion itself. It is the energy it takes to constantly recalibrate, to constantly ask yourself, am I being fair? Am I overreacting? Is this actually happening? Or am I the problem here? That loop, that internal loop of second guessing yourself, that is not an accident. That is often the result of being around someone who has consciously or not made you feel like your perception cannot be trusted. I want to paint a picture for you. Imagine you are sitting across from this person having what seems like a normal conversation, and you bring something up, something small, something honest, a feeling you had, a moment that bothered you, and within 60 seconds, the conversation has shifted. Suddenly, you are the one explaining yourself. Suddenly, you are the one who misunderstood. Suddenly, the original thing you brought up has been buried somewhere underneath their feelings about how you brought it up. And you walk away from that conversation not feeling heard, not feeling resolved, feeling somehow smaller than when you walked in. Hold on. Because that image I just described, some of you felt that in your body just now, not as a concept, as a memory. And I want you to sit with that for a second. Not with anger, not with panic, just with honesty. Have you walked away from conversations with this person feeling more confused than when you started? Has talking to them ever left you feeling like you somehow became the villain of your own story? Tell me in the comments. You don't have to say who, you don't have to say everything. Even just a yes is enough. Now let me go a little deeper, because there is something very specific about the way certain people use innocence as a tool. They never raise their voice. They never say anything overtly cruel. They stay calm. They stay measured. They always have a reasonable explanation. And because of that, if you ever try to describe what they are doing to someone else, it sounds like nothing. It sounds like, well, they were just trying to help. Or maybe they didn't mean it that way. Or you know how they are. They don't always say things perfectly. And you are left standing there holding something very real that nobody else can quite see. That isolation, that feeling of being alone with what you know is one of the most painful parts of this kind of experience. Because the problem isn't just what they are doing. The problem is that the way they do it makes it almost impossible to prove. I'm not sure why, but this feels important to say right now. You do not need proof to trust your experience. You do not need a witness. You do not need their confession. You do not need anyone else to validate what you felt in your own body, in your own life. Your experience belongs to you, and it is real because you lived it. Let me slow down for a second, because I want to talk about something that often gets overlooked in situations like this. The grief. Because when you start to see someone clearly, when the image you had of them begins to crack, there is a loss in that. Not just of the relationship, but of the version of that person you believed in, the version you were loyal to, the version you made sacrifices for. And grieving that does not make you weak, it makes you human. Think about a moment when you were alone, maybe walking somewhere, maybe lying in bed at night, and you felt this wave of something that was hard to name. Not quite anger, not quite sadness, something in between, like mourning something that never fully existed the way you thought it did. That feeling is one of the most honest feelings you can have, because it means you are no longer pretending. It means something in you has decided to stop protecting an illusion. And that takes courage, more courage than most people realize. Have you been feeling that kind of grief lately? That quiet mourning of something you thought was real? Leave me a comment below, because I think this is something a lot of people are sitting with right now and not talking about. Now, I want to bring this somewhere important because this reading, this moment between us, is not really about them. It has never been about them. It is about you. It is about what is happening inside of you. It is about the part of you that has been quietly, carefully gathering awareness. Not to destroy anyone, not out of bitterness, but because some part of you knows that you deserve to see clearly. And that instinct, that deep, quiet instinct toward truth, that is not something to be ashamed of. That is something to be respected. I want to talk about your instincts for a moment because I think you have been overriding them, not because you are foolish, but because you are fair. You have been giving the benefit of the doubt. You have been choosing to assume the best. You have been telling yourself, maybe I am wrong. Maybe I am missing something. Maybe if I just give it more time. And there is something genuinely beautiful about that quality in you. The willingness to be fair, to stay open, to not rush to conclusions. But here is what I want you to consider. Fairness is a virtue, but it becomes a trap when it is only ever applied in one direction. When you are always extending fairness to someone else, but never extending it to yourself. When you are always questioning your own perception, but never questioning theirs, you deserve the same fairness that you give so freely to others. Let me bring you into a scene for a moment. Imagine you are somewhere quiet, maybe at home, maybe in your car, and you receive a message from this person. And before you even open it, your body reacts. Not with excitement, with something more like bracing, like a small invisible preparation. And then you read it, and the words look perfectly fine, friendly even. But you sit there anyway, reading it again, trying to find what is underneath it, trying to figure out what they actually want, what this actually means. That is not paranoia. That is your nervous system telling you something your mind has not fully accepted yet. And here is what I want to say about that. Your body is not dramatic. Your body does not make things up. Your body has been tracking this situation longer than your conscious mind has been willing to. So when it sends you a signal, that quiet tightening, that small hesitation, that moment of bracing, that is worth listening to. I want to acknowledge something before we close. You have probably been told at some point, directly or indirectly, that you are too sensitive, that you read too much into things, that you are too emotional, too suspicious, too much. And I want to offer you a different possibility. What if you are not too sensitive? What if you are appropriately sensitive? Sensitive enough to pick up on things that others miss? Sensitive enough to feel the difference between what someone says and what they mean? That is not a flaw. In a world full of performances and masks and carefully constructed impressions, the ability to feel what is real is one of the most valuable things a person can have. So here is where I want to leave you. Not with a plan, not with a decision, not with instructions on what to do next. But with this, you already know more than you have been allowing yourself to know. And the clarity you have been looking for is not hiding somewhere out there. It is already inside you. It has been building quietly, patiently, for longer than you realize. You do not have to force anything right now. You do not have to confront anyone. You do not have to have it all figured out. You just have to stop talking yourself out of what you already feel. Trust the quiet knowing